How's it going, everybody? This is Sean with Panasonic LUMIX, and we have a really special event for you guys today. I'm joined by Matt Frazier, Business Development for Panasonic LUMIX, and Todd White, LUMIX Global Ambassador, located here in Austin, Texas, to talk about the brand new LUMIX S5. Now, if you're unaware of what these kinds of events have been in the past, we normally do these LUMIX Live styled kind of conversations during the week, but we wanted to come to all of you guys and really give you guys the rundown on this brand new addition to the LUMIX L-mount system. The S5 is a really exciting camera, and what we're going to do today is kind of cover some of the technical specifications about it, what really kind of makes this camera special in the series. We're going to also talk about some of the cool firmware goodness that's been announced with the camera as well, and really kind of dive in with the actual hands-on impressions from Todd here. So with that, let's kind of jump right into this. So Matt, can you give us kind of a high level of what the idea is for this S5 in the lineup?
Yeah, I think the key with the S5 is that we were trying to take what makes the S1H and the S1 such great photo and video cameras and downsize them into a smaller, lighter weight form factor. And so that's really the way to look at the S5 is it has the video recording power of an S1H, the photo capturing capabilities of an S1, just downsized. So on the photo side of things, it's the 24 megapixel sensor that we use currently in the S1. With one little modification, we've added what we call dual native ISO, which is our secret trick to giving it better low light sensitivity, a little bit better dynamic range. So if you're shooting video at ISOs 640 and 4000, at 4000 it's going to look the same as 640. If you're shooting photos at 100 and ISO 640, they'll look the same as well. So that's one addition that we've made that wasn't in the S1. The stabilization system, as I mentioned, is an IBIS or in-body image stabilization system. It's our dual IS system, so it works with the lens as well as the sensor to give you a tremendous amount of stability. It gives you up to 6.5 stops of stabilization actually for photography and some of the best looking video stabilization on the market. On the video side of things, what we've done is really taken as much S1H stuff as we can put into this small chassis without causing it to thermal or overheat on you. And we're giving you everything we possibly can. So you get 10-bit internal recording up to 4K 60p, which is, again, that's an S1H feature. That's not even in the S1. You're going to have access to 422 10-bit at up to 4K 30p. We're going to include Vlog. We're going to include V-Gamut free of charge. You don't have to pay to unlock those features. To give you an idea of how far we're pushing this, we're even giving you the Academy region anamorphic functionality. So if you want to mix this with anamorphic lenses, you can de-squeeze those right in the camera. It's in the traditional 4:3 aspect ratio, so it works perfectly for anamorphic production. We can even stabilize the sensor and optimize it for your anamorphic lenses. So you're getting very high-end S1H features in this camera. We've also rethought some things like our variable frame rate function. We've made it a little bit easier to use by including something called the S and Q mode. So on the top of the mode dial, you can just put it in S and Q. You don't have to constantly make a lot of changes to get the frame rate that you want. So if you want to kick out a quick and easy time lapse, S and Q will do that for you. If you want to get the slow-mo up to 180 frames per second in 1080p, you can also do that with the camera as well. And then there's a lot of video tools in the product. So you're going to have the ability to use dual zebras. You'll also have the ability to use a waveform monitor to set your exposure correctly. And we also include the Luminance spot meter. So you can just move a little box and it tells you how many stops over or under a given portion of your images. And then on top of that, we do have some other things planned. I like to jokingly say it wouldn't be a new Panasonic launch if we didn't already have firmware planned for it. So there will be a new firmware update for the camera. That should happen sometime by the end of the year. This firmware adds some tremendous new technologies to the product. The first thing is it's going to add the ability to output RAW over HDMI. So you'll be able to record video RAW with this camera with an external Atomos recorder. We're also going to be adding the ability to do Cinema 4K. So that's a wider aspect ratio of 4K, 4096 by 2160. So you'll be able to record that internally in the camera or to an external recorder. We're also going to be adding additional tools because we're adding these cinema-centric features. We wanted to give you some more cinema-centric tools. So you're going to get things like, you're going to get a vector scope for it. So if you want to properly calibrate white balance because you're doing multiple camera angles, you'll be able to do that. We're going to add master pedestal function so we can control the darkest black levels to match other cameras. And my personal favorite addition, and the one that we fought the hardest to get, this camera will get our SS gain operation. That's not a boat. That's not like the SS gain, but what it really is it allows you to change how you express shutter speed and gain. Photographers are used to shutter speed and they're used to ISO for gain, but cinematographers, they want to use shutter angle instead of shutter speed, and then they use ISO because they're used to film. Whereas video shooters are used to shutter speed and they're used to gain. They've never really worked with ISO. So you have the ability to customize how those things are expressed.
So moving on to this, you know, kind of the actual, like, all right, cool, the specs and everything are great, but how is the camera actually in the field? And this is why, like, I'm so excited that we got to work with you on this project, Todd. You know, we've talked a lot over the last, a couple of years about wanting to get, you know, something of this style in with your type of photography. Could you give us a little bit of, you know, kind of background on the project that you shot for us at the launch of this camera?
I shoot a lot of fashion and commercial work, and that's about a 50-50 between photo and video. In fact, the majority of my clients hire me and they want stills and video content just to create a nice, well-rounded group of images and video that they can use to promote their brands. And so this just fits perfectly into that and for my style and what I do. So for this project, there were 3 videos that I produced for this particular camera right off the bat, and one of them was a lifestyle shoot that I did and shot everything with the continuous autofocus and shot that in 60 frames right out to my Ninja 5, and it worked perfect. And the second shoot that I did was a fashion shoot for one of my clients, and I was already going to be doing a fall lookbook for them, so I used this camera and shot in studio, and then we also went out and shot on the streets of Austin to produce the editorial content, and Sean actually was on the first part of that shoot with me, which was really cool. And then the last project that I did was featuring a glass blowing artist up in Salado, Texas. And so there's a guy up there named Gail, and I thought it'd be really cool to interview him, talk about how he got started, and just his whole approach to blowing glass and creating amazing pieces of art. And so I spent a couple days with him doing an interview and then filming him working, and was able to put this camera through the paces, both shooting in 24, 30, and 60, and it just, because it was small and working in a little bit of a tight space, especially around the fire and the blowing and moving quickly between different places in the studio, it just worked out great for that. It really did.
Panasonic.